I'm Dennis Ferris, and this is the Limitless Energy Podcast, and we are here in Tampa at the RV Super Show. Today I'm here with Todd Woefler, Chief Operating Officer of Thor. Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks, Dennis, for having me here.
So this is an interesting time. We have come off a couple years of an absolutely booming industry, and would you call it a wall that we've hit or a temporary trough here?
We've certainly hit a slowdown, right? And we're facing, macroeconomic issues that our consumers are facing right now, driven by Fed policy that is designed to kind of quell demand, right? And it's done exactly that. And certainly the RV space is often one of the first spaces to feel those kind of impacts.
Bellwether.
Yeah, absolutely. We're the bellwether. And so we've felt that. What's been really impressive, though, is the resilience of the RV consumer. The shows early this year have been very favorable in terms of people coming out, people buying, and the activity around the shows, like this show.
There's a lot of enthusiasm.
It's crazy. So 17% higher sales than the prior pre-sale record from 2019.
Really?
Which was during that boom time that you're talking about. So this year, we're expecting the show in Tampa just to be, packed. So it's a great sign for us. But the consumer's under that kind of pressure, and it's on the industry to sort through, what we can do to kind of alleviate that. And we've seen prices creep up just because component costs have gone up. We've seen interest rates go up, so consumers are facing an entirely different buying proposition than they had before. And finding ways to be creative to alleviate some of those challenges is really where OEMs should be focused right now, and I know that's where Thor is focused.
Right. Interest rates, that's the real killer for this sort of purchase, right? That's the whole Fed policy is, as you noted, directly aimed to quell demand, but is it disproportionate to this kind of purchase, do you think?
For sure, right? Nobody has to buy an RV. There are things in our lives that we have to buy. So and it is a high-end discretionary item, and so when the consumer feels that kind of impact on their pocketbook, some of the first things that they turn away from would be those discretionary purchases, and RVs certainly fit into that mold. And our job right now is to make sure that we make clear to the buyer that the lifestyle, that the demand has not changed. It's the willingness to make the buying decision that's slowed down a bit. And our job on the OEM side is to do what we can to make that an easier decision for consumers, because that lifestyle awaits them once they make the decision to do it, right? Incredible family experiences with friends, a choice that will change your life. And so finding a way to make that buying proposition something more palatable to consumers during tough times is where we need to be focused right now.
Yeah, we've noticed very similar thing in the lithium-ion battery business, where the demand really hasn't stopped. It's just the buying decision has slowed down. Folks are still calling in. Folks still want to design systems, but it's like, oh, maybe I'll buy half the system now and half later. And there's still a lot of interest.
Right.
And so with the RV industry in this cycle, we know how the operations tend to change. Can you talk a little bit how the innovation changes? Is there more innovation in down periods, or is it pretty steady?
Yeah, it's a great question, because the compulsion is, you've got to manage the business prudently, your finances during slow times. And so the compulsion is for spends like innovation or marketing or some of those things is to pull back. But right now is the worst time to do that, because the innovation, the investment we're making today is going to reshape the customer experience, in the next couple of years. And so slowing that down only delays our opportunity. So we won't slow down our investment in innovation. It'll continue, we'll funnel that money and that investment into strategies that are specifically designed to make the user experience better. Whether it's aligning with great partners like Dragonfly and their lithium-ion battery solutions, or electric RV chassis manufacturers that we've partnered with. And there's just so many opportunities for us to elevate the customer experience. And so those investments that Thor has made will continue to be made.
Well, selfishly, we definitely appreciate the partnership between Thor and Dragonfly Energy. I want to talk a little bit about that because when you talked a lot about ESG and the focus of Thor on ESG, was Dragonfly part of that initiative?
Of course, right? So when Thor, the RV industry, not just Thor, but all OEMs and suppliers, the ESG has been something that's been part of how we think about our business forever. If an outdoor company like an RV company isn't focused on sustainability, then I don't know who would be, right? When we though formalized a strategy around ESG, and we looked at our suppliers and our potential partners and a way for us to improve the footprint that we leave when we put products out into the space. Dragonfly was a natural solution for us, right, and a natural partner for us, which is why there were two reasons, really. Well, three reasons. One, the sustainability reality of the products that Dragonfly sells. Two, Dragonfly was the right partner because of the way they think about the business, the way you guys think about what you're doing. Last night's product rollout was incredible, right? How you think about your business in different ways, and you're thinking about how do you make this safer for people? How do you make it more user friendly so that when they're relying on batteries to run their RV, they can conveniently know exactly where they're positioned as they look at their phone, and the system communicates with them and lets them know that. Those are big differences to alleviate anxiety. So Dragonfly was an important partner for us when we looked at sustainability. As we look forward, as we consider sourcing choices now, sustainability is at the top of the list about, okay, how does this fit with our strategy on sustainability? It's important to Thor and how we do business.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. We did, work hard on that product rollout, and we're excited about it. We're excited about the new technologies, and excited to get it into Thor products. So
Yeah.
let's talk about Thor. And you've got, is it 17 subsidiary companies?
Yes.
And you've got some of the most iconic brands under the Thor family. You've got Airstream, and you've got Keystone, and of course we've had a very close relationship for some while with Keystone, and we view Keystone as one of the most innovative, especially for a company putting out that towable product, to be going to a solar flex package and going standard with lithium.
Yes.
What's your opinion? How do you? I know you can't play one against the other. But
Well, no. The reality is, so we're sitting in an Airstream now. Every single time I walk into an Airstream, it is awesome, right? Airstream is unique. It's different. It is iconic, and it's something that is set apart from the rest of the industry. But when you talk about Keystone, they are the world's largest trailer manufacturer, right? They are, and you don't get there and stay there without being the leader in the space. And so when they partner, and they brought the Dragonfly partnership to Thor, right? It wasn't Thor bringing it to them. It was the relationship that your team built with Keystone that opened Thor's eyes to the opportunity. So that is how Keystone thinks about their business, right? They're always a step ahead of their competition, and that's why, year in, year out, they are the largest supplier in the space.
So there was the Tiffin acquisition that occurred as well, and Tiffin, we'd also been working with Tiffin for years, and we viewed them as pretty advanced with their electrical systems, and great to work with. How has that been?
Incredible. So the Tiffin family, Lee Tiffin now runs it. He is the grandson of the founder and an incredible operator who has really found his comfort operating within the Thor family of companies, leveraging a bit of what Thor can help his Tiffin with. And we've seen that company prosper. He's made some great choices lately as he's brought that company back to its core, and they're moving away from towables, and they're going to focus deeper into establishing more Class B opportunities across the portfolio. But Tiffin always had, right? They were high-end, best-in-class customer experience solutions, which is why, a partnership with Battleborn makes sense with them, right? Mm-hmm. And to have those kinds of solutions, in the units is a difference maker for them. And Tiffin is... was kind of that last piece of our North American portfolio, that really high-end player that in that space. And when we were fortunate enough to align with Tiffin, that kind of fulfilled our portfolio, and we feel really good about that. The partnership's been great. They've performed incredibly well. And what's really important to long-term Tiffin users is they still do everything the Tiffin way. Mm-hmm. They're still putting out top-end, quality products for their users. Thor didn't go in and change anything. That's not how we operate when we buy companies. We allow those companies to have their own identity and maintain the identity that made them successful. Where Thor comes in is we might be able to help them with some capital, some partnership opportunities, and some things like that elevate what the company does. But at its core, Tiffin is Tiffin.
But Thor is providing more in terms of technology advancements. I mean, Thor Corporate, I'm talking, the Innovation Center especially. I mean, there is a pretty strong and I would say unique push at Thor Corporate to really figure out, especially the electrification.
Yeah, absolutely true. So 5 years ago, we started our enterprise level innovation center. And since we've started it, the investment that we have made and the breadth of focus of the strategy from that group has increased every year, because what an incredible time, right? We've got developing technologies, we've got emerging brand new technologies, and all coming at this industry that are going to fundamentally redefine the customer experience. And this is the time for Thor at the enterprise level to be making investments to help vet partners, right? To help identify dragonflies, and partners that can make a difference in our users' experience. And so that team led by McKay Featherstone has done an incredible job, right? We've aligned with and are in communication with a number of electric chassis manufacturers, and we're looking not just to buy an electric chassis, right? That to Thor, that's not a strategy. Our strategy is focused on how do you take the electric chassis that might be available from a manufacturer and make it uniquely better for the RV experience. And that's where our innovation team comes in, and they've, we're engaging. We're not just evaluating the product available from electric chassis manufacturers. We're engaging with them and saying, okay, how could we make this better for RVers? And that's going to make a huge difference, right? And that's that investment you talked about earlier in innovation. It's why it's important that we stay the course with that strategy, even through times like now.
Mm-hmm. As a battery manufacturer, we have always viewed the RV industry as not just a bellwether for the economy, but as a bellwether for how electrification is going to happen. Because these are folks that are already living off grid, and these are folks that already know how to live off of solar panels. And so it's been a great industry for us to be partnering with. And as this becomes more and more prevalent in RVs and in Airstreams like this one, where you can go and park and boondock, it's going to become more prevalent in stationary applications, which is, obviously as the battery manufacturer, we are looking to electrify everything, but ultimately we want to see more storage everywhere, whether it's mobile or stationary. So,
right,
that's the partnership with Thor is just absolutely huge for us.
Yeah.
So your background is not technology; it's legal.
It is.
You were the chief. Were you the chief legal officer at one point?
Yeah, I came to Thor in 2012. Bob Martin was just about to be named CEO of the company. He was COO at the time, and he wanted a general counsel, and I interviewed with him. The strangest interview of my entire life. It lasted 5 minutes, and I was sure it went terribly bad. But it went really well. And so I started as general counsel with them in 2012. But even during that interview, that very short interview I had with him, I told him, look, I operate in the law and I understand the law and how it relates to RV companies, and I can bring that value, but my real interest and passion is on the business side. And I don't want to just be a lawyer. So from the beginning, I was involved in parts of the business, but that's grown over time. Bob, Bob is an incredible operator, and he has an extreme willingness to make sure people get where they belong, regardless of what their title might be or what their experience might be. But where their value is, that's where he puts his people. And over time, I kind of evolved into that role. And when we announced a year or so ago that I was COO, it wasn't a big shift in the job. Like, you and I had met, I was working on that with you, and things like that had happened, and I was doing a lot of what I do today. I had evolved into that role. We just kind of formalized it a bit when the title changed.
Mm-hmm. But with your background and the changing structure of the vehicles, are there compliance issues that are important? Are there different regulations? What does your background bring to the change in the industry?
So, and the answer to your question is yes, right? When you're thinking about electrification, you're thinking about all these new technologies, and whether you're talking about data privacy issues or just
Right.
Compliance issues, there is a constant monitoring from the legal compliance side of these technologies. We're fortunate, we're blessed. We've got a couple of people at Thor who are best in class. We've got our vehicle compliance manager, David Mahalik, is the best in the space, and he is deeply engaged with our innovation team on a regular basis. On the data side, we have Chris Lane, who's our data protection officer, who helps us and is also plugged in regularly with the innovation team. But you're right, a lot of these emerging technologies trigger really challenging legal questions, and sorting through that and making sure you do that the right way is part of the process. So yeah.
It's not just the electrical standards part, but as you noted, the data part. Like, we want to know how you're using your power, and I guess there's privacy, considerations there, and
Yes.
the technology we're rolling out, for example, it gives us the capacity to collect data, and if possible, we'd love to see the data, compile all the data, and optimize how the electrical system works.
Right, and we've got to make sure we do that within the confines of the growing number of data protection laws across the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the challenge, right? Because the data for the purpose of improving the experience is a great use of the data, right? Data for the purpose of incessant marketing efforts and everything else is not something consumers are fans of, and it is something that the laws in a growing number of states protect against.
Mm-hmm.
So being careful and making sure you do that the right way and fully compliant is an important part of all innovation that we're doing at Thor right now.
Mm-hmm. But ultimately, you see it headed in that direction.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have to, right? Understanding where that data used for improving product performance and therefore improving the user experience, that's when data is at its best, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there, absolutely, that's part of how we think about it, and how we are approaching it. We're being very careful to keep our compliance teams plugged in as we go along the way, because you don't want to go too far down one path and figure out it's not a viable solution.
Right.
Yeah.
So Thor is already the world's largest manufacturer of RVs.
Yes.
So the latest acquisition, Airxcel, is a little bit different. And I don't know how much you want to talk about this, but where do you see, as you're already the largest player, where do you see the expansion of Thor? How does that work out?
Yeah, I think the RV industry and the outdoor industry in a broader sense has a number of opportunities for Thor as we look ahead. When you think about the Airxcel acquisition, our industry has outstanding suppliers, but they're relatively few in number. And making sure, as we went through the pandemic and the challenges of that time, we saw firsthand, and lived firsthand the struggles of a limited supply chain. And part of our strategy was to identify opportunities to strengthen that. And that could mean a number of different things. And when the Airxcel opportunity arose, it meant that to us. That we believe, because Thor is not, we do not have a strategy of vertical integration. We did not buy Airxcel and make it a supplier exclusively to Thor. Airxcel supplies the entire industry on even terms. There's no special Thor treatment. And we did that to make sure the industry had a viable supplier as an alternative. And that is important to the industry. It was important to Thor, and that's why we did it. As we look ahead, our growth opportunities, as you pointed out, we're the largest manufacturer in the world. So we're in Europe, and we have opportunities there. We're watching the markets there and the impact from the war and everything else. And so there's some process there for the macroeconomic realities to kind of normalize and to fall in line and be a little bit more favorable. Right now, we just can't get chassis over there. But once that market starts to normalize, as it will, our company over there, Erwinheimer Group, is incredibly well situated, and there are a number of growth opportunities there, to be sure. And then back in the States, the potential for supply chain, other aspects or ancillary opportunities around the RV space, those are all on our radar.
Well, I think you're one of the busiest guys in the industry, and I know you're on a tight timeline, so I just want to thank you so much for stopping by today.
I appreciate it, Dennis. Thanks for having me, and Thor appreciates the partnership with Dragonfly. Thank you.
That's going to do it for today. I'd like to thank my special guest, Todd Woefler, Chief Operating Officer of Thor. Be sure to subscribe to us on any of your favorite podcast platforms.